afternoon. My name is Jose Velasco, and I'd like to present my case study on Pedro Ramirez Vazquez. Vazquez was a Latin American modernist architect from Mexico. He was born in Mexico City in April 16, 1919. His influences include the European and the American modernist movements. Specifically, he really admired the work of the architect Le Corbusier. And he was also influenced by many other Latin American modernist movements, since he displayed many Colombian sort of styles in some of his projects. He was a prominent political figure since he was able to connect and talk with several political leaders in Mexico and was able to acquire large funding for his projects. He received his bachelor's of architecture in the National University of Mexico in 1943. And during his time, he was able to design many modernist buildings that included and were not limited to museums, pavilions, stadiums, a whole school system, and even a religious basilica. He recently passed away on April 16, 2013. Our first case study is the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It was a modernist addition to the holy complex that was built during the 17th century. This modern addition was built in 1974 to 1976. Its structure is mainly revolved around a circular design, which included many materials like that were mainly focused on concrete, massive forms, and stained glass on its exterior. The roof is really interesting since it sort of comes together in the middle and creates a sort of cone structure in its exterior, as you can see here. The basilica houses a monumental image of the Virgin of Guadalupe, and it's an iconic image of faith and of religious importance. It's a site of many Catholic pilgrimages and has become a really iconic building in the Catholic faith. Here's some of the exterior shots. And here is the old basilica, which is right next to the new basilica. The old basilica revolves around the dome, neoclassical sort of structures. So it's a nice touch to have a modernist building alongside it. Here's the interior, which has many interesting moments in which it has a lot of space and its ceiling has many interesting shapes that sort of like converge into like the single central point. It has a main pillar or wall that's meant to focus its attention to some of the religious symbols. It has many vertical sort of patterns in the background. Here's a close-up of the altar. As you can see, it's meant to be like the main focus during the Mass and many of the religious services. Okay. Our second case study is the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. It's one of the most famous museums and one of the most visited as well. It was commissioned by the president at the time, and its building features many exhibitions and interesting auditoriums, and even a courtyard, which includes a fountain, a square garden, and a reflecting pond. The museum houses many ancient artifacts dating back to the Aztec and Mayan empires, and these exhibitions and auditoriums are optimized to have as much space and lighting to present these artifacts to its audience. Here's the pavilion, which is really interesting since it's a massive concrete slab that is supported by this like main pillar, and it even serves as a fountain as well, which I found really captivating. Here is the courtyard. It has this square pond and a lot of space around it. Here's some of the interior exhibitions. Here's an old photograph. But as you can see, it plays a lot with like this massive space, and it's optimized to create uh, just these like moments where one looks at these monumental artifacts. It has many uh, walls here that create like this sense of openness and circularity around the space. Here's another shot. And as you can see, they play a lot with the light and many of the patterns and colors that create many effects or artifacts. Just another shot of some of the artifacts that are found there. Right. And then our third study would be the Tower of Tlatelolco, I think. It's an example of a modern skyscraper that was built in Mexico and was continually being repeated in Latin America as well. Um, this one specifically was constructed in 1960, and it's about 100 meters tall and 27 stories high. It's based on a metallic frame that has a marble exterior. And as you can see from the building, it has many of these vertical window strips that run vertically on the building. And they're all met by this large horizontal window strip. It is located in the residential town of Tlatelolco, and it's next to was built next to an archaeological site. It was intended to be a headquarters for the Foreign Ministry of Mexico, and the building itself is anchored by many steel and concrete piles to withstand the high magnitude earthquakes around the area, which makes sense since it was built next to a site of archaeology. Here are some of the side shots. As you can see, it sort of boasts these vertical window strips. Here's the archaeological site that was built next to. And interesting enough, it should really account for some of the earthquakes. So it makes sense to have these like large pilotis to support it. Okay. As you can see, it really reminiscent of the modernist architecture and some of the skyscrapers that were even built in Chicago, like those of Louis Sullivan. Here's some of my parting thoughts. Let's get back to that. It was very interesting learning about these specific case studies, and I think it goes to show that some of these architects and some of these smaller firms are not given the same recognition as some of the European and American architects that are like focused on our curriculum. So I believe it's necessary to expand our knowledge and recognition of some of the modernist architects from different backgrounds, races, and cultures, who have like successfully demonstrated some of the major principles of modernism and modernity in their projects. So I think it's really important to learn more about these architects that are not as well known. Thank you for listening, and this was my presentation.